Abby, how are you, Abby? Are you doing okay? Oh, I'm not talking to Abby because you won't let me talk to Abby. And I have a feeling that if Abby's still alive, she's either institutionalized or she's probably somewhere where you're going to make some excuse for trying to promulgate a political policy around what? Harm reduction? How does somebody that's routinely and repeatedly trafficked through mental health facilities because people don't want to take responsibility for how their speculation and their kickback scheme that involves them sending her to get mental health treatment actually does nothing close to reduce the harm in her life. Okay, all right, I'm talking to you, right? Abby V, right? And how the day that somebody has a big press conference that's actually an anniversary of the day I sent them a proposed piece of legislation, they're doing exactly the opposite of what the proposed piece of legislation said, which was attempting to get redress for people that are trafficked through the Health and Human Services, presumably because they have a mental health problem. And what is he doing? He's having a press conference meeting with people in the insurance sector that aren't medical insurance. Why? Well, because there's a very intense distinction between those who need medical insurance and those who need other kinds of insurance, including insurance for assets, right? Twice. The other one had to do with the flip on a excise tax connected to refusal and failure to disclose that got translated into pre-existing conditions for medical insurance. Now, what is the appropriate forum for redressing these problems? Do I take him to a court of law and accuse him of kidnapping me and politically disappearing me? I don't know what the code of law is when it comes to political disappearance, right? I don't know what that would be. Would this be part of an internal ethics investigation? Well, then I would have to be acknowledged as a candidate for political office and somebody that intended to run and declared their intent to run who was kidnapped in the course of attempting to declare their intent to run for public office twice, right? Including before I got trafficked to the home state of the second person of concern. Because despite the appearances of a factional dispute, it is a consistent RICO enterprise, if nothing else, by using me as the same vehicle for interstate acts of racketeering, right? So I'm just letting you know. Don't be messing around with this. You pinged me. I was supposed to acknowledge. Well, I mean, what you did is an argument very comparable. Your contract argument's comparable to what he did. See, he's the son of a bitch that wanted me to be exploited for his gain. He could have been my colleague. He could have gotten some traction if that was a legitimate bill. The problem is, it wasn't a legitimate bill. That was somebody that was allowed to abuse my 13th Amendment and position himself to benefit from my exploitation as if I was his property, at least for lease, for a particular period of time. He had no right to that, and neither did any Democrat, and neither did anybody in the state of Texas or any other state or any other federal government position. I don't care how many people from how many banking establishments contributed to your campaign and expected to get a kickback. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. You're not allowed to do it to anybody. And you're certainly not allowed to do it to anybody, even under the auspices that somehow there's something legitimate about arresting somebody on false charges and then making them available for indentured servitude as some form of restitution. You never had the courage to attempt to accuse me of an actual crime because I wasn't the one guilty of any crime. So you go ahead and figure that out. I have already presented it in what I understood to be the appropriate jurisdiction. I don't know what's happened to people who are qualified professionals that keep undermining their own authority by refusing to establish their authority in their own court. You know what's happened? You've lost your court. And the problem is what we've got now is a bunch of squatters. And it's very distasteful. And it's certainly no position to actually deal with the work that needs to be done in making sure people get their needs met. Now, unfortunately, you want us to get all mired in trying to do credit repair on people who stole from other people that they lied and libeled in saying they didn't have credit or credibility, including in acts that are about nothing more than profanation of people based on somebody else's projection of an appropriate passage of an unconstitutional religious test. You've now literally coded that religious test to an actual fucking blood test in the worst kind of abuse of people based upon religious persecution. It's gone too far. I contend and I hold to it. Yes, I will acknowledge aspects of what I said in my contract evaluation may perhaps hearken to things that were brought up in public notices regarding a proposed piece of legislation regarding private health care that was, as far as I know, introduced by a senator from Texas in the summer 2018. But that was after more than a year of having already had submitted to him pieces of legislation for review, including around tax policy, as well as trafficking of people through the Health and Human Services, and a request for consideration of an outline on criminal prosecution of exploitation of people through the financial system that was not meant to be anybody's reelection strategy.